Hi everyone, welcome back to ladensercrotchets. If you're new to this channel, my name is Liz. You're welcome. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're going to make this skirt. It's a cover-up skirt with long fringes, and I hope you're going to enjoy making it as much as I did. Grab the materials and let's get into it. I'll be working with scrap yarn for this project because I've realized that I have too much scrap yarn lying around, and I've chosen these 5 colors to work with. The yarns are medium weight. Some are medium weight, the other ones are thin. Now for the medium weight yarn, I'll be working with 1 strand, but for the thin yarn, I'll work with 2 strands. So this is thin, I'll work with 2 strands. This is medium weight, I'll work with 1 strand. Then I'll use a 5mm crochet hook. I'll need a pair of scissors, 2 stitch markers, and a measuring tape. I'll begin with the orange. And before then, there are some measurements that you're going to need, and these are the measurements that I'll be using. You're going to need the waist measurement. I've measured mine in inches, so the waist, the hip measurement, the length of the skirt, and the length of the fringe. So begin with a slip knot. Then chain 5. So I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then I'm going to pull out my hook and insert it into the first chain that I've done. Then put it back into the 5th stitch like this and continue chaining. Now you want to chain until you get your waist measurement while slightly stretched. I'm working a waist of 26, and for this I'm going to chain 70. So just keep chaining till you get the number of chains that are equal to your waist measurements. I have done a chain of 70, and I'm just going to measure this to see whether I get to my waist measurements. And when you're measuring, you're just going to stretch it a little bit, and you want to ensure that whatever you've gotten here is able to go over your shoulders and fit onto the waist. So you can make it slightly bigger than your waist, and then you can attach a drawstring to make sure that it fits. So without stretching, my chain is going up to 11 inches, and because it's folded into 2, 11 multiplied by 2 is 22. Then I'm going to stretch this out a little bit, and when I do, it gets me to 13, which is 26. When I stretch it, when I give it a big stretch, it goes up to 15, which is 30 inches. And that means this skirt can fit somebody with a waist of between 24 to 30. So once you get your waist measurements, you're going to pull the loop through the first loop, the second loop through the first loop to complete the round like that. Then we're going to chain 2, and the chain 2 acts as our first double crochet. Then we're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the chains all the way around. So to do that, you yarn over, place your hook into the chain. Then I'm going to work over the ends to weave it in. So then yarn over, grab a loop to get 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. That's our second double crochet. Then yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, then pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through the remaining 2. Then place 1 double crochet into each of the chains. So I'm in the last chain and I'm just going to place a double crochet there. And we're done with row 1. Then we're going to do a slip stitch onto the chain 2 to complete the row. So right here, do a slip stitch like that. And row 1 is done. Chain 3. The chain 3 will act as a double crochet and a chain in between. So the two chains are the double crochet, and then we have 1 chain. Then you're going to yarn over, skip the next stitch, and work into the 3rd stitch with 1 double crochet. Chain 1, yarn over, skip the stitch that follows, work into the next one. Chain 1, skip, double crochet. Chain 1, skip the next, skip this, work into this one. Chain 1, skip, double crochet. And this is what we're going to repeat till we get to the end of row 2. Now, as I come to the end, I only have 2 stitches remaining, and I'm going to yarn over, skip this, work into this last one. Then I do not have a stitch to skip at this point, so I'll just chain 1 and then go straight into the chain 2. So I'll just count the 2 chains and slip stitch. So if you have a stitch to skip, then good for you. But if you don't have, you're just going to chain 1 and slip stitch into the chain 2 stitch that we started with. And we are done with row 2. Now from this point, we're going to need to start increasing in order to achieve the hip measurements. So to do that, I'm just going to chain 2 first. Then I'll turn my work. Then pull out this hook. Now for this part, you're going to need stitch markers. I forgot to mention that you're going to need stitch markers. Then I'll get this point. I'll just hold my skirt like this. Then get these 2 points. The point where I'm working, where my first stitch is, and this stitch on this end, I'll bring them together. Like that. And then I'm going to mark these ends, this end and this other end, with stitch markers. So get stitch markers and mark. In order to ensure that you mark the right places, you need to count the number of stitches from one stitch marker to the other on one side and on the other side, and make sure that those stitches are the same number. So the stitches on the bottom part and these stitches and these other stitches should be the same number. Now I'd already chained 2 and turned. I'll chain 1 more, which is the chain 1 in between. Then I'll go on top of the double crochet and work a double crochet. chain 1, go into the next double crochet and work a double crochet, chain 1, into the next double crochet, do a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet next, and repeat till you get to the stitch marker. So we're going to work an increase at the stitch marker, and therefore I'm going to pull it out, and into that stitch I'm going to place a double crochet, chain 1, go into the same stitch and place another double crochet. Then I'll chain 1, and into the same stitch I'll place another double crochet. So it's like we are increasing, we are placing 2 increases into the same stitch. Then get the stitch marker and mark the middle stitch. So there's 3 double crochets into that one stitch, then mark the middle double crochet. Then chain 1 and keep working on the double crochet, 1 double crochet into each with a chain in between till you get to the next stitch marker. Once you get to the next stitch marker, chain 1 and pull it out. Then into that stitch we're going to place a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet into the same stitch, chain 1 and another double crochet into the same stitch. Then we're going to mark the middle stitch, and keep working 1 double crochet into each of the double crochets to the end. Once you get to the end, you chain 1, then slip stitch onto the chain 2. So count 1 and 2 chains and slip stitch right there. That is the end of row 3. Then chain 3 and turn to begin row 4. We begin row 4 in the second stitch with a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet next, chain 1. We are not increasing in row 4, and so we're going to place just 1 double crochet into each of the double crochets with a chain in between, but the points where we have the stitch markers, we'll just keep on marking them. So once you get to the stitch marker, you're just going to pull it out, chain 1 and place just 1 double crochet in that stitch, then continue marking the stitch. So mark the stitch and keep going to the next stitch marker with 1 double crochet into each of the double crochets. Make sure that each of the double crochets are separated by a chain 1. So at the stitch marker, chain 1, pull it out, place the double crochet, and then put back the stitch marker into that stitch. Then chain 1 and keep going till you get to the end of row 4. At the end, place a slip stitch onto the chain 2. Then chain 3 to begin row 5 and turn. Now row 5 is going to be an increased row, so we're increasing at the points where we've marked. Now work 1 double crochet separated by a chain till you get to the first stitch marker. At the stitch marker, pull it out. I've already chained 1, so I'm going to go into that stitch and place a double crochet. We are increasing, so chain 1, go back into that stitch with a double crochet. Chain 1, go back into the same stitch with another double crochet. Then mark the middle stitch. Now keep going up to the next stitch marker, and once you get to the next stitch marker, you're going to increase. So now make an increase into the stitch marker, into the stitch that is marked. So place a double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet into the same stitch, chain 1, a third double crochet into the same stitch. Then get your stitch marker, continue marking the point. And work to the end with 1 double crochet into each of the other stitches. So chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and repeat to the end. Slip stitch into the chain 2 at the end, and I'm going to chain 1, then cut off the yarn at that point. Then I'm going to reconnect another color, so cut off the yarn, pull through and fasten. Then I'm going to turn my work to the other side before I attach the next color. And for the next color, I'm going to use this luminous yellow, I guess. So because it's a thin yarn, I'll be doubling my strands. I have the 2 strands right here. I'll begin with a slip knot. Then grab my work from where I've cut off the yarn and insert the hook and slip stitch. Chain 3, then work a double crochet into the next double crochet. This is row 6, and in row 6 we are not working an increase. We're just placing 1 double crochet into each of the double crochets, including the marked stitch, but then you're going to ensure that you continue marking that stitch. I'm just placing 1 double crochet into that stitch that had the stitch marker. Then I'll keep marking the stitch and continue to the end. I'll meet you at the end of this row and show you how to work the next row. So this is row 6, is it? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So row 6 has no increase. Row 7 is going to have an increase. So I'll meet you at the end of row 6 and show you how to measure the hip measurements to see whether we are getting closer to what we want. I'm at the end of row 6 and we're going to measure our hip measurements to see whether we are getting closer to the hip measurement that we want to work. So I'll just turn my work like this, then get the measuring tape and place it right there. So without stretching, we are at 13, which is a hip measurement of 26 when multiplied by 2. Now we're going to give this a stretch, not so much, just a little bit. And when we do, we get into 16. 16 multiplied by 2, that's 32. We want to get to 20 because the hip measurement that we're working is 40, and 20 multiplied by 2 is 40. So I'll just keep increasing in alternate rows until I get to my hip measurement. You'll also do the same thing. Keep increasing until you get to your hip measurement. So I just finished row 6. I'm going to increase in row 7, and to do that I'll chain 2 and turn to begin row 7. Chain 3, actually you're supposed to chain 3. Let me see. So chain 1, 2, 3 and turn. Then work into the double crochet till you get to the stitch marker. Once you get to the stitch marker, you're going to work an increase. I believe that by now you know the drill. Increase in one row, then the next row you work with no increase. So I'm going to increase in row 7, work row 8 without an increase in row 9, work row 10 without an increase, and I'll do this until I get my hip measurement. So I would advise that you measure every time you increase. After every increase row, measure to make sure that you don't work a skirt that is too wide. So let me go on, work my rows of increase, and I'll be back once I've hit my hip measurements. This is what I have after 11 rows, and I'm just going to measure this to see where we've gotten to. And we are at 16 without stretching. Then we give this a stretch, not so big because you don't want your skirt to be too tight, and this is quite stretched in order to get to 20. So I'm going to do one more increase and then I'll be done with the increases. Next I'm going to attach the pink. Yeah, let me do the pink next. This one, it's a medium weight yarn, so I'm just working with one strand of the yarn. Begin with a slip knot. Then you're supposed to turn. So I'll turn my work to this side and then reconnect at the point where I've cut off the yarn with a slip stitch. Then I'll chain 3 and work in the next double crochet with 1 double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Next I'm in the increase row, so I'm going to do that last increase and then I'll not need the stitch markers anymore. So I'll just work till I get to the stitch marker. Once you get to the stitch marker, chain 1, pull out the stitch marker and put it aside. I'll put it aside because I don't need it anymore, because I'll not be increasing after this one. So into this stitch, I'll do an increase. Continue with 1 double crochet into every stitch till I get to the next stitch marker. So now I'll pull out this second stitch marker, put it aside, increase in that stitch. Then continue to the end. So at the end, chain 1 and slip stitch onto the chain 2. Chain 2 and turn. So now I'm ready to continue working without increasing anymore. And at this point, I'm at a length of, the length of my skirt is around 6.5. When you're measuring the length, you're not going to stretch. So I'll just keep going with 1 stitch, 1 double crochet into each double crochet until I get to my length of the skirt, which is 13 inches. I've already hit the hip measurement, which is 40. Right there. So now after chaining 3, should be a chain of 3, I'm turning. I've already turned actually, so I'm working on this side with 1 double crochet into each of the double crochets, separated with a chain 1. So let me work my rows and I'll be back once I'm done. This is after working 23 rows, and that gets me to my 13 inches, which is the length that I set out to work. And now it's time to work the fringes. Before you cut off the yarn, do not cut it off or do not cut a short end. What you're going to do is you're going to chain 1, and then from this yarn that is remaining on your skirt, you're going to measure the length of the fringe that you're working. In my case, I'm working a fringe of 26 inches. So I'll measure 26 inches from the skirt right here. And then I'll cut the yarn at the 26 inch mark, or the 27, then I'm going to trim it down to 26. Then I'll pull the yarn through like that. And that is our first fringe on the skirt. Now I'll be attaching the fringes on the gaps on the skirt, and I'm going to use the colors that I have on my skirt to create the fringes. So this is what I'll do. I'll just grab the 5 colors. There are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 colors. I'll get them all together. I have my 5 colors together like this. And when I'm creating the fringe, I'll be folding the yarn into 2. So what I'll do is I'll get the measuring tape and measure the 26 inches. Then at that point, I'll fold at the 26-inch mark, fold the yarn like this, and then bring it back like this and cut at this point. Cut the yarn at that point. So now this is the fringe that goes to the skirt. I'll divide this into 2, or I'll get 4. These are too many strands, so I'll get like 4 strands. Fold it into half. Get my hook, and then I'll go into this first gap right here. Pull the yarn through. Then you're going to grab all of these and put it through that loop, then pull through and fasten. Not too tightly. Don't make it too tight, because if you make it too tight, it might pull your skirt like that. And there we have our first fringe right there. Then you're just going to get the yarn again, all the strands together. Get all the strands together like this. Measure the 26 inches. Then fold at the 26th or slightly after 26. Then cut at that point. Now I'm going to create the fringes, and then after that I'll attach them. So again, measure the 26 inches on the yarn. I'll just put the fringes aside. Measure, take 26.5, fold into 2, and cut the yarns at that point. Continue making the fringes until you feel like you have enough, or you can cut as you attach them so that you do not waste too much yarn. So I'll just cut my fringes, then I'll come back so that we can continue connecting them onto the skirt. I'm first going to attach these fringes, and if they're not enough, I'll create more and continue attaching. So I'll just get like 5 of the strands or 6. Ensure it's divided into 2. Ensure that I'm holding on the middle part. Grab my skirt. I'll first attach while skipping a gap. So I'll skip that gap and work into the next one, because I don't want them to be too much. So now I attach this and fasten. Then I grab another 5 or 6 strands, fold into half, skip a gap. So we are skipping this one and working into the next one. Then grab another 5 strands. And then I'll continue attaching these fringes all the way round while skipping one gap. If you want to work in every gap, you can do that. Do whatever works for you, or whatever you feel is going to be to make your skirt look nice. So let me do that and I'll be back to show you what I'll have. Now this is what we have. Once we're done, we're going to trim the fringes to make sure that they are the same size. After I'm done attaching the fringes, I've put the skirt on the mannequin because it's easier to trim the fringes this way. And then I'm just grabbing my pair of scissors and cutting off all the ends that are longer than the others, just to make sure that they are they are of the same size. Then I'll just go on, cut the fringes all the way around the mannequin from the front to the back, and after that I'll be done. So if you've enjoyed the tutorial, kindly leave a like, a comment, a share, subscribe if you're not subscribed. Also, there's a button for thanks if you really enjoyed the tutorial and you would like to gift me with a special gift. Click on the thanks button and leave any gift of any size, and I'll appreciate that a lot. So see you in the next tutorial. Bye.